Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings, everyone out there in podcast land, and welcome to Heaping Spoonful. I'm your host, Kelly Bass, and I really appreciate Benny Keith Foods giving me the chance to visit with so many of the top chefs and restaurateurs across the Mid-South on these podcasts. I have been a foodie long before that term was ever invented, and for the better part of 30 years, I had the privilege of writing dining reviews for a couple of Little Rock newspapers and then magazines, long before the internet gave everyone a chance to be a food critic. But I will say, I have learned to love talking about food much more than writing about it. Today we have three guests, Kim Lester, Patty Jones, and Lisa Glidewell, sisters who with other members of their families own and operate Mexico Chiquito, one of the all-time most beloved and enduring restaurants in Arkansas history. So welcome to Heaping Spoonful, ladies.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. We're happy to be here.
Glad y'all are. Cool. Well, I will say that it is very safe to say Tex-Mex is one of the very most popular styles of food all across the United States and beyond, but it's a particularly big deal in Arkansas. But you know what? There was no Tex-Mex here until Mexico Chiquito introduced it in 1935 in a very humble building with a dirt floor in the Prothero Junction area of North Little Rock. And so that is a super long history y'all are carrying on.
Yes, it's quite impressive, 86 years.
God, that's amazing, isn't it? God. Before we leave our Heaping Spoonful listeners scratching their heads, wondering what you three sisters had to do with a restaurant that was founded in 1935, decades before any of you were born, let's have a quick history lesson. So I hope I get this pretty much right. Blackie Donnelly and his wife moved here, or to Prothero Junction, from Texas in 1935 and opened Mexico Chiquito. The Ballantyne family bought it from the Donnellys in 1963 and ran it for 16 years before selling it to your parents, Betty and Jerry Haney, in 1978. And so that's a very long time unto itself. And it's been a family-run restaurant ever since. I know that each of you, and likely your sisters, because there's 5 sisters, has worked at Mexico Chiquito much of your lives, as have your kids and husbands and other family members. And after your father passed away in 2011, you've been at the helm. But at least you certainly knew what you were doing when that time came.
Kelly, I started working for my dad when I was 13 years old. Yeah. So, I've been around a few more years than that. But my family's had the business for 43 years now. We're really proud of the traditions that Mexico Chiquito has had in the Central Arkansas area, and we're really proud of what we've done. Yeah,
and we'll talk more in a little bit about the brand equity of that name, but again, it's endured longer than any of us have endured and will endure lots longer. So for our listeners, to say that Mexico Chiquito introduced Tex-Mex food to Arkansas is significant. But it's much more significant to say your restaurant introduced cheese dip, or chili con queso, to use the more fancy name, not just to Arkansas, but to the world. And there's been some debate about that, but there's been a lot of research into it that verifies that indeed is true. No one can say there was cheese dip like we know it before Mexico Chiquito. So that, again, is pretty powerful unto itself.
Yes, we claim to have invented cheese dip. There's actually a documentary about Mexico Chiquito being the inventor.
Yeah, and there's a cheese dip festival here, and it's just crazy. And it's also super good. And I'm going to go ahead and make all my listeners jealous. These nice ladies brought me some cheese dip. I put it in the car. That way you don't have to hear me crunching on air. But it really is amazing. And what people, again, outside Arkansas, and we hope we have, if there are listeners on Mars, we're happy, or on the space station, but all around the world, we know we have listeners to Heaping Spoonful. But if you don't live in Arkansas, you don't know that cheese dip is really ubiquitous here. I mean, we have a cheese dip championship contest, but you'll find some version of that dish in restaurants that don't even serve Tex-Mex foods. I mean, I work in downtown Little Rock. I walk across the street to a place that's known for its chicken fingers. Guess what? They got cheese dip. There's an Irish pub a couple of blocks away. They've got cheese dip. And, Samantha's is one of the not fancy at all, one of the most popular kind of new American restaurants. They have cheese dip. So it's just kind of everywhere.
Yeah, cheese dip is something that, especially in the Central Arkansas area, you see it everywhere. People love cheese dip, and people love all kinds of cheese dip. Our cheese dip was invented in 1935. That's when it was brought to Central Arkansas, and we really feel it's a special recipe.
Yeah, it is, and I will remember in the 80s, I think your location, maybe near Markham and Rodney Parham, had a happy hour and it included free cheese dip.
Yes.
I think I personally ate your parents out of house and home. I think they realized this is not good to give away the golden goose here, But again, it's interesting too because there has been a lot of writing, and you said there's a documentary about the cheese dip and Mexico Chiquito's role in it. But when the restaurant opened in Protho Junction in 1935, it had 4 entree choices. You had the Mexican dinner, the summer plate, the Chiquito ladies dinner, which I think is just hilarious because what does that mean? You hold your pinky out when you eat it? I don't know. And the enchilada dinner. But listen to what was on the Mexican dinner, and has always been on the Mexican dinner. It started with a tomato juice cocktail. You had cheese dip, guacamole salad, a beef taco, beef enchilada, cheese enchilada, tamale covered with chili and melted cheese, rice, refried beans, fruit punch, and then sherbet for dessert. And I will tell you, dating myself, my first job worked as a copy boy at the Arkansas Gazette newspaper in the 1970s, and reporters and editors would send me out to get dinner because they didn't have time to leave their posts. They were writing and editing. And they all got the Mexican dinner, and it was $1.99 in the 1970s. But I think it's really important. I read an interview with your father from 2007, and he said, you know what? We hadn't changed those recipes. That's important. We're staying true to what we've always been. And you still serve the same food and with other things added on, obviously. It's 2021. But the same food that made your restaurant famous in 1935.
Yes, we recently brought back the 4 original dinners on our menu, so you can get that. But one thing is so important to Mexico Chiquito and our family is to always keep the recipes the same. We've stayed true to that. We want to keep it that way. It's Arkansas history. Yeah,
without a doubt. And again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk more about the progression of Mexico Chiquito in a few minutes, but I want to make sure we talk about your father's career beyond Mexico Chiquito, because he had a glorious career outside of this brand. But let's talk about cheese dip some more. So I Googled, in quotes, Mexico Chiquito cheese dip. And in less than a second, Google gave me 449,000 results.
Wow.
And most of those are some version of the recipe. But I've been told that none of them are exactly right.
Yeah, we keep that secret pretty guarded.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've looked at them because...
Oh, yeah.
Scott, Lisa's husband, looked at the one I used that's supposed to be, and he's like, that ain't right.
Yeah. Some of the ingredients aren't even on.
Yeah, Dad really loved that. People would try to guess at it all the time and send them emails. I think there were some things maybe printed in the paper at one point, and he would just get a big giggle out of it. He'd say, oh, nope, not right.
Yeah.
Not anywhere
We love
close.
that.
And guess what? I'm not telling you what's not right. Yeah.
And, our spices aren't even bagged. We have people that bag our spices outside the restaurant.
So even our cooks do not know what actually is in there.
see.
They know
Or the
that this
portions.
spice bag goes with this batch. And we make 30 pounds at a time.
Right.
So it's really hard when you make 30 pounds at a time to try to imitate that recipe because you're not going to make 30 pounds at home.
No, and exactly right. Plus, like you say, you want to make sure the proportions are right. And so you get that all done before.
Right.
That way there's no... not that your staff isn't totally loyal to the brand and to you all, but you don't want them going like, guess what? I know how to make this.
Yeah, they just tear open the spice pouches and they know what to do after that.
Yeah.
I think they're just labeled like bag number 7.
Yeah, it may say
Right.
like Mexico Chiquito spice number 1.
Yeah.
And they know number 1 goes with cheese dip. So
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And as I said, I've used a recipe that it's supposed to be similar. And when I got married to Ashley 11 years ago, she came with a recipe. And there's a couple of things that say they're Mexico Chiquito cheese dip. But again, I know they're not. But I tell you what, they're a big hit when I serve them because it's got some of the same things. And I will tell you, and I've had to slap my friends on the hand. Once I learned that cheese dip does not start with a big old 2-pound brick of Velveeta and a couple of cans of Rotel. There's no Velveeta and there's no Rotel in this cheese dip. And it starts with real cheese, and it's in a white sauce, and, that's just the way you make real stuff. So what can you tell us about what you think makes it arguably the best it's ever been? Is it just the consistency, or is it the spice blend, or is it just what makes it so great?
Maybe it's a little bit of everything. I think that, especially for the people in Central Arkansas, a lot of people were raised on this. And when you're raised on something, that's what you love.
Yeah.
And, that's what we were raised on.
Yeah, we're not particularly fans of white cheese dip.
Yeah.
We are Mexico Chiquito cheese dip lovers. And, we go to restaurants across the state, across the country, and, we will always order cheese dip. We want to see what they have to offer, but it's never quite the same.
It's hard. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for white's just a different animal.
It is.
And it's not the real thing. But, it's out there, that's for sure. And then there's the amazing fruit punch. And, so I was all excited and that I got 449,000 hits when I did Mexico Chiquito cheese dip. And again, I did it all as one phrase, not so that it just grouped it all together. I did the same thing with Mexico Chiquito fruit punch, 552,000 results. And again, mostly recipes. I'm sure that you've some point looked at some of those, and I'm sure they're not exactly right either.
They're not.
Correct.
They're not. And, we make the punch and they're 55 gallons at a time. So you really can't replicate that. And, there are flavors in there that you think there's this in there that may not be in there. And it's just something that people really love. I mean, people drive, miles.
Yeah, people come from Hot Springs, Cabot, really all over the state. If they're in town in Little Rock, they're going to drive through.
Sure. No, I know. And I'm sure, again, those are... I'm really glad to hear that you brought back all the original dinners, but cheese dip and fruit punch have to still remain huge sellers.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
They are our top sellers. People refer to our fruit punch as liquid crack.
Yeah, I can see that. Oh, it is so
Yeah, they
good.
do.
I know.
It's pretty awesome.
And I was saying earlier, brand equity is a well-known term in the consumer market, and some have it, some don't, and you have to earn it, and you don't get it overnight. But there are other brands, around Arkansas that people, when they hear, they think of quality and they think of tradition and they think of the particular items they like there. But Mexico Chiquito is one. So have y'all ever even thought about maybe, other than selling it at your restaurant, have y'all considered at some point in time trying to get some of your products into retail stores?
Kelly, we've thought about that for years, and I'm not going to say whether we're going to or not, but we have been doing a lot of research, and there might be something that happens.
There might be a surprise down the road.
Good. Well, I again, speaking for myself and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of other Mexico Chiquito fans, I mean, you see that on the shelf in your grocery or in another, served in another place, you're going to give it a shot, and you're going to be glad about it. So that's cool. Listen, we're going to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful and be back in just a bit with sisters Patty, Kim, and Lisa, the daughters of Betty and Jerry Haney, who today, again, with help from other members of their family, own and operate Mexico Chiquito in Little Rock, Arkansas. So hang on, we'll be right back.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
Welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. Let's now continue our conversation with Kim, Lisa, and Patty of Mexico Chiquito. So back to the history of your restaurant. So your parents purchased the one and only location at the time in 1978, the original in Prothero Junction. So talk about the growth of Mexico Chiquito during the next 10 to 20 years, because in 1978, y'all were too young to be doing much with it, but you were aware of it, obviously. I mean, I don't remember your relative ages, but some of you more than others. And so talk about kind of how it moved from there, or not moved from there, but how it grew from there.
Well, Kelly, I remember when my dad decided he wanted to buy Mexico Chiquito. It wasn't for sale. He was persistent. He went there, I think, every Friday night.
Yeah, we went there as a family every Friday night. We were obsessed before our family purchased it.
Yeah.
He loved it. He loved it so much. And so he actually, he talked them into selling it to him. And I remember having a family meeting and him discussing with us. And I was young. The other girls were a little bit younger. remembering and telling him, hey, this is a commitment. And this is what we want to do. And we were like, oh, we love that place. This would be so great. And when he did, he would bring it home every Saturday morning. And we'd have friends and gathered around the table and everybody eating the chips and the dip and the punch.
And it wasn't just our family, because there's 5 girls in our family. So us girls would always have friends over. So it would be like a community of our friends. And we would be around our big kitchen table, and we would destroy that cheese dip in a matter of minutes.
Yeah. But after Perotho Junction, what was the next location of Mexico Chiquito?
I believe it was Rodney Parham.
Right.
And that was there for a long time.
That was one of the biggest restaurants in the state at that time.
It was.
And was that at Markham and Rodney Parham?
Yes.
Yeah, which was, the nature of the city and traffic and growth of the things, but that was really a hot
it was.
area. And of course, there's still major thoroughfares there.
Yes.
Right.
But
and then he went into, he did a lot of Mex-to-Go's.
yeah.
He started moving into that direction and then pulled back and then decided he wanted to expand with full service, went into Lakewood Village and ended up closing the original Perotho Junction building. And then he got this great idea, what if we did a double drive-through?
Wow.
And that was kind of a big deal at the time. You didn't really see that.
You don't see very many of those.
No?
And so, the Markham location was kind of his brainchild, and it was I think an old Rally's building, double drive-through, and it's about 800 square feet, and you would not believe the volume.
You would not believe it. Our employees
brilliant.
are like a well-oiled machine on that cook line.
Right, because that's no inside dining, just
Oh,
to
no.
go around, which means you can be much more efficient because you don't have to bother walking over and going, can I take your order here?
Oh,
Do
right.
you
There's
need
not a
some
lot
more
of room
punch?
in there.
There's not a lot of room, and they get there early in the morning. We do everything fresh, Kelly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Every day we fry chips.
starting at 6 a.m. That's when we
Food
have
prep.
to start.
Yes.
Yeah, otherwise you're not
And they fry chips for a couple of hours, and then you've got the cooks that come in and they start doing everything. Isn't a process because it's such a small building. You have to be organized.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then what time do you open? 11, I guess, or
10:30.
10:30.
Yeah.
And the cars line up and
We close at 10, but I believe if we were open till 11, we probably still would be.
And we were open to 11 at one point, and then COVID hit and we pulled it back, and then
Yeah. And Dad used to refer to that location as my little engine that could, because we just couldn't believe that location could put out that volume like more than a fast food restaurant. And
right.
absolutely.
and we're not really a fast food
No, not
restaurant.
at all. And of course, they're having to prep it all and cook all the taco meat and roll the enchiladas and do all of this stuff.
Chimneys.
And we do a lot of caterings too on top of that.
Yeah.
Right.
So
all out of that kitchen. Right?
we've done weddings before, we've done baby showers before.
Oh, yeah. We booked 3 caterings today. I mean, we're starting to, get into our holiday
we even have
season.
a couple of schools that actually, call us every couple of weeks and do something from their kitchens. We bring it in and they distribute it at some.
Oh, that's neat.
So
that's
it's
neat.
good.
And the market has really changed over the years. I mean, in 1978, the Tex-Mex landscape around Little Rock was this. There was Mexico Chiquito, there was Browning's. I don't think Island X was even probably still around at that point. And then in the 80s, Mark Abernathy, who's still got 2 great restaurants here, moved back from San Antonio where he'd gone to run a Fridays and he'd learned a few things about. And he opened Juanita's, which has different sorts of recipes. It's still Tex-Mexy, but I think he started with some white cheese dip. And then the Hispanic population in Central Arkansas grew greatly. And you had, a lot from Casa Mañana to La Hacienda to other places that opened. And they serve, again, their food is Tex-Mex too. It's not what you'd find in Mexico, but they've learned the market. And did that have much of an impact on Mexico Chiquito, or did you all just power through with your fans?
I think you have to power through, but it does affect you. I mean, the market has changed so much. But there's a lot more people eating out. There's a lot more restaurants out there. And, the restaurant business is a very competitive business.
The industry is brutal, the food industry.
Oh, I know.
And especially during these times. But
people don't realize the profit margins are not huge.
Oh, no.
They're
You
not.
see, restaurants open and close every single day.
I know.
And just in Little Rock or Greater Little Rock every single day.
I know, and I'll tell you, that just talking about the dynamics, Mary Beth Ringgold, who was a guest on one of the first 4 or 5 episodes of Heaping Spoonful, and she said, when we built Capers, that was like the only thing out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Now, you're surrounded, I mean, not Buffalo Wild Wings.
Right.
I mean, it's just Restaurant Row. And that's not so far west Little Rock anymore. And she said it's just really has changed the whole dynamic. But again, you've got the very vibrant spot that, again, your father was smart enough to think about the double drive-through. And thankfully for him, my parents and others who didn't ever have to deal with COVID-19. But again, I'm sure that people were so comfortable coming through the drive-through that your business had to be good and we're still, again, we're recording this in early November of 2021. We all thought we'd be done with COVID by now. We're not fully done. Knock on something resembling wood. It's getting better. But you all see good, solid business all through the days of the pandemic?
We were kind of built for this. We have a double drive-through. People don't want, people couldn't go out to dinner for a long time. And then, you've got people that just want to go pick up dinner. So it's perfect for this. It is just... I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we have this option. The double drive-through really works well. We've even been playing around with the tablet. It's been great. We love it because it's actually helped increase our drive-through times. The problem we have is just getting enough people to work it.
Oh, I know.
And space.
Yeah, that's true. But, you mentioned early on that that your family has been at the heart of everything that's happened in Mexico Chiquito. You all three have official administrative duties, and you all run, again, with help from others, run the place, others in your family. But I know that if you need to jump in and do the real work of schlepping food, y'all jump in and do it.
Oh, yes.
We definitely have done that.
We have definitely done
that.
Do
it a lot lately.
More this past year than ever. We have, we've all been there together at one time. Patty is frying chimneys, Lisa's at the register, Pam's on the cook line.
Maybe a little slower than the rest of the group, but we're going to be persistent. We're going to try to make it.
We're not as fast as they are. They're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, well, the labor market's tight.
Oh, it is.
Well, and
we're fortunate. We've got some good employees that have been around.
Yeah, talk about a few of those people, because I know I talked to Lisa over lunch recently, and I know you have people who've worked for you basically full time for decades, but then you got people who have worked for you a while who are school teachers or other stuff.
Yes.
So just mention a couple of those folks, and feel free to mention them by name, and we'll make sure they listen to Heaping Spoonful in this.
Yeah, we do have a teacher. I believe she's a basketball coach at
Parkview.
Oh, Parkview, yeah, and she works on weekends and sometimes nights. And we have another employee that's a shift supervisor at Walmart, but she works she probably works about 4 or 5 nights a week. She's the closer on those 4 or 5 nights a week. And so and we have other people that have other side businesses, somebody that owns a little bakery herself, and she works nights for us. So some of our people that have worked for us have been with us for over 30 years. I think
That's amazing.
Now we have about 5 employees at the store who have worked for our family over 25 years.
That's unbelievable. And, you just don't hear about people staying in any jobs, much less restaurant jobs are hard.
Yeah, it is.
You're on your feet. It's hot. It's high energy.
Well, I think we kind of have a family environment.
Yeah.
We have, it's family run. There's 5 sisters. Jennifer and Pam are not here with us today, but, we have two sisters that work for us, 2 brothers that work for us. Some of those employees have their children working for us, and then we've all had kids who have worked for the store or currently working for the store.
Yeah, I know Patty and Lisa, both your kids have been right in there with you, right?
Yeah. Even my 14-year-old, he just got a job there. He loves it. He's only working a few hours a weekend, but that's it.
You just breaking him in.
Yeah.
It's good for him.
Yeah, it is good for him. And it's just good also to say, hey, this is my family business.
Oh, yeah. There's pride in that.
A lot of people who would wish they could do that. So now let's talk a little bit more about your dad. Jerry Haney, an amazing man who was on the cutting edge of many things in the restaurant world before and beyond Mexico Chiquito. So will one of you all just kind of give us his general story, where he started and kind of how he got to Arkansas and all that? Because he's not from Arkansas, wasn't he?
No, he's from Memphis, and he graduated from Humes High School. Actually, there's a little bit of information. He didn't graduate with, but he went to high school with Elvis Presley.
Wow.
So they actually has an Elvis story.
Yeah, they actually performed on the same stage for a talent show. My dad was in a group called the Four Jokers, so I don't think he was as popular as Elvis, but
few words.
But after high school, there wasn't much opportunity. So really, the one thing that my dad did was he joined the military. He was a United States Marine, and he did that for 3 or 4 years. And then he came home, and he shared a car with our grandfather, and they both worked at Firestone. And Dad went to Memphis State, it's called Memphis State back then, and he graduated in 3 years.
Wow.
So he did that. After he graduated, he started working for Little Pigs of America Barbecue. It's a little franchise group out of Memphis, and soon after he started working there, he got recruited from KFC.
Yeah, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have
In Louisville.
yes,
John Y. Brown, who then became the governor of Kentucky later, but he recruited Dad along with Jack Massey. They had just purchased KFC from the Colonel. So they recruited Dad, and my mom and him had just married, and they...
Well, before that, he actually became the first national training manager for KFC.
Wow.
So he worked with Colonel Sanders. Wow. He worked with all the franchisees out there.
He taught them. He
Thomas
wrote the books on exactly how to fry original chicken, fry crispy chicken. He did all of that.
So
And he has a funny story about mashed potatoes.
Yeah,
Let's hear that
one time Dad was making mashed potatoes, and Colonel Sanders was in the store, and Colonel was very. Well, he was a little spunky man, and he was never really PG rated, and he wanted to know who the bleep made these mashed potatoes, and my dad had to say that he did, and
They threw him out.
He's like,
Haney. He taught him how to do it again.
he threw him out, and he was not satisfied. So Dad kind of became a perfectionist at food product. He wanted the perfect food product,
He wanted it right the whole, every
temperatures,
time, same
everything.
way.
So there he was in corporate KFC and the training manager, and had to be a young man at the time. I mean, he had to be in his 20s or maybe,
He was in his 20s, yeah.
That's amazing. And I will, again, full disclosure, I've been friends with Lisa's husband, Scott, since before they began dating, and their oldest son's in college, so that gives you an idea of how long I've been hanging around. And it wasn't long after I met Scott, y'all started dating, and I've met all the family, but I used to get very, very lucky to get invited to the Christmas party at their parents' house. And your father and maybe your mother too, I don't know, really were wine aficionados and had really good, and they liked a lot of the same kind of wines I did. And so he had a big wine cellar downstairs, and he had a big table, kind of like a Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur table. And he would go in and pull out bottles and set them down, and I'd look and see what. So I've drunk like $100 Pinot Noir while eating nachos or cheese dip.
Probably it. We probably had.
It was great. I'd tell those.
It's a great combination.
Yeah, he loved the wine, but he would have, finger foods from Mexico Chiquito.
Yes,
or,
exactly.
Or even KFC.
Yeah, or KFC. No, I've gobbled down some chicken fingers with some really nice Napa Chardonnay.
Hey, it all works together.
I know, but I was just proud to be there. So again, Lisa's husband, Scott, told me that when, because Dave Thomas was also in corporate KFC.
Yes.
And worked with Jerry Haney side by side, and they became friends. And then when he came up with the Wendy's concept and was getting Wendy's off the ground, so I'm told, he called your dad and said, hey, do you want to maybe do the franchises in either Arkansas or Central Arkansas? And I hear that your dad said he really wasn't confident that a square burger was really going to succeed in the marketplace. Is that true, or is that just something Scott says?
It actually happened. He met Dave Thomas because he actually had to train him
On how to run a KFC.
Run a KFC, right. Yeah. And so they became friends, and they respected each other. And years later, when he came across, he started this Wendy's concept, he approached my dad along with other KFC franchisees, and my dad was like, well, I'm not sure about that. I don't know what people are going to think about that square burger. Yeah. And he backed off of it, not for that reason, but we had just Mexico Chiquito at that time.
Yeah.
We had a lot of KFCs and Mexico Chiquito, so he just kind of felt like we need to focus on that.
Yeah. And, the thing is, it would be a really sad story if it had been like that was the downfall, and boy, if he'd just done Wendy's, y'all would have actually gotten to go to college and stuff, He did. Yeah. Everybody did just fine.
Yeah.
And, Hammer and Jerry Hammer and Jim Keat did it around here, and Jim Keat, who's also been with his sons. That's the only other time we had three folks till today.
Yeah.
Have done a great job with Petit and Keat and Tzatziki's and all that stuff. So it one big happy family. So really, well, listen, this is a great story, and it's one that means a lot personally to me. So thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Patty. Thanks, Kim, for being my guest today on Heaping Spoonful. Continued good luck as you oversee one of Arkansas's most beloved restaurants of all time, and hopefully maybe one of these days we will move those products a little bit outside the store, but we'll check in on that later. So thanks to everybody for listening to Heaping Spoonful. We post a new episode the first and third Tuesdays of each month, so keep an eye and an ear out for them and catch up on ones you might have missed. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.